Previously on Chat 62.
While in the Corps, were you looking at any kind of re-enlistment at that time during your last year, or you were saying, 4 years and that's it, I'm out?
I was out at 4. My goal was, my impression is the Marine Corps is a good place, founded on solid fundamentals and principles. The people you work for or with make your experience pleasurable or otherwise. My first 4 years were otherwise.
Real quick before we start, we've streamlined our contact info. From now on, if you have any questions, feedback, or ideas for future guests, just shoot us an email at chat62podcast@gmail.com. That's chat62podcast@gmail.com. All right, let's go. So you jumped on the first opportunity that was presented to you.
It was the first solid offer, but it was the pre-IPO stock that got me. This is the time when Qualcomm had just gone public and the secretary retired, a multimillionaire. So I had big ambitions for what that was going to be like. I was living with a different friend and his wife on Cardinal Way. I want to say it was off the Onifray. I think it was in 52 area, on base there. And I expected that I would come from this job by train. And so I left my car, and I guess I caught the train up there. They worked me 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I didn't get a break for a couple of weeks. When I was finally able to get a moving truck to come down, my car had a boot on it and paint. They thought it was completely abandoned because it had been so long that I'd been able to be there. So this company was brutal. My longest day, quote unquote, was Friday at 7 a.m. until about 13:30, 1400 on Saturday when I was about to collapse. We built Dell server racks all night long.
And this is during the first year post active duty?
Yes. No, I guess I skipped the part here where I went to the computer school as a small computer system specialist, was of course just moved to 29 Palms. It had been somewhere else the previous class.
Of all places, huh?
Yes. It's like, oh, I'm back to you, old friend. So I'm the junior.
That's what you were in 29 Palms for a year, right? Or no?
3 months.
3 months, okay.
A total combined year and a half. So I'm the junior corporal, but I've got this entrepreneurial drive and spirit, and I asked to be the class commander. One guy's done it before, one guy's not interested, and I think the other ones didn't care either. So they're like, you're it. So I'm the junior corporal, but they let me be the platoon commander. So I implemented a mandatory study hall, kind of influenced on the challenges that I had with the radio operator course, that you kind of need to do some training with some people. No one left behind. And there are definitely some people that would be cooks if I hadn't implemented that requirement. My platoon graduated with everybody, and I don't know what the correlation was, but General Krulak came and talked to my class.
Wow.
He spoke to me, and we were actually in the newspaper in 29 Palms. I believe they had ran an article on it. I don't know if that's why, but the commandant came to my class and spoke to me. And I told him, sir, this is what I did 2 hours after class every night. We would do this. And I studied for about 14, 15 hours over the weekends and stuff, because I don't know your familiarity with network topology, but I hadn't taken algebra and passed algebra in high school at that point. And so this N-1 thing, I had no clue. So I noticed a pattern of hosts and subnets. And at 16 hosts, you have exactly 16 subnets. And then they go in opposite directions from there. That's the number of computers that you can have on a single network.
Okay.
And so I recognize patterns. And so I recognized that pattern. So I was a class commander at that school. And when it's time to get your pros and cons, the I was a gunny or staff sergeant. I got higher conduct than proficiency for the first time ever.
Wow.
4.849. The highest marks I ever had.
Amazing.
And he said, there's just something missing with your leadership. And then I explained how we had this massive void for a year or two when there was nobody hired in E3. And he says, that's it. So I grew fascinated with leadership at that point and wanted to study and learn more about that. So I believe it was the time I was with Seal Beach. I volunteered for Toys for Tots, and we're at Knott's Berry Farm. And I'm the junior corporal. I think there was a couple sergeants. We have way too many people. And so I'm looking around and my mind's working and I'm thinking. And so I approached the sergeant. I said, Sergeant, we have enough people here. We can split up into 2 teams. You take the first half, I'll take the second one. Run in the park for 4 hours and come back and relieve us. He's like, okay. So we're going through Knott's Berry Farm in our dress blues. And you want to hack. We skipped every line there was. I rode the Supreme Scream up and down 3 times without getting off. They're like, you want to go again? I'm like, I'm good. Let's let somebody else go. But you got so much accomplished in that 4-hour shift. It was amazing. But it was really touching the donations that people made. This one guy actually handcrafted and carved little trucks out of wood and painted them. And that was his donation. So it was cool. Some people really went above and beyond for donating for Toys for Tots. So that was a really cool experience as well.
Yeah, very personal gifts.
Yeah.
How long were you at the reserve station for Seal Beach?
So I think it was about a year. I got a letter saying that they were going to drop me to Lance Corporal because I hadn't been able to make drill. Working 17 hours a day, 7 days a week, there was no possibility.
At your civilian job, right?
carsdirect.com in Culver City. And so I call up the commanding officer and I said, weekend warrior status is not going to strip me of what I earned on active duty. I explained my situation to him and he said, well, I appreciate you calling and letting me know. No, I'm not going to take your rank, but if you're not able to drill, I'm going to have to discharge you. I said, I understand. It was, let me see, I had skipped something I wanted to go back over. Oh, going back to Lucas Group and the executive. So they have this incredible system where you go to the hotel rooms and stuff. This is at another time. Now with my background and experience, I'm elevated to the officer equivalent. And I'm meeting with a company, I can't remember who it was. One of the people in their HR there remembers me from when I'm later on a project manager for Lennar Homes. And they ask you about leadership experience. And so I talk about the school and the way that I was able to lead my class. And I said, do you still have any questions about my leadership skills? And she's like, nope, I'm good. And this other person said, yeah, there's still something missing. And that really drove me crazy for a long time thinking about what that could be.
I didn't even tell you.
He couldn't figure it out.
Mm.
So I'm like, what could that be? What is missing in my background? And then I came to the conclusion, in corporate America, you're not going to be trusted with the livelihoods and the equipment in the magnitude that you are in the military, 100,000 people, millions of dollars of equipment. So you've been there for 10 to 15 years. And here, Butter Bars falls out of a bar. I was trying to think of a dormitory. It lands on his feet. And this is what they're entrusted with. And so the opportunity to be responsible for that magnitude of value is what he wasn't seeing in me that he was getting from all of his other candidates. There's no way I could compete with that. Mm-hmm. So I'm with Seal Beach for about a year. That time that I had the longest night, my boss asked HR if we could get paid overtime for working that ridiculous number of hours. No, you're professionals. You get $32,000 a year. as salary. You're not entitled to any more money. So for this job, I started when a semi truck showed up. I unloaded the truck, unboxed computers, put them on a switch, loaded an image on them, configured them for the network, took the trash out the back, and deployed the computers to the respective workstations. So you talk about full scale life cycle process.
Yeah, I was about to say cradle to grave.
Yes.
Shoot.
So I'm trying to go out the door to get to the semi truck to start this ruckus. And this rent-a-cop, their company had already lost 3 or 4 laptops to people. I'd caught them sleeping. And now they want to act big and bad and put their arm up to me and tell me I'm not walking through this door that gives me a shortcut to the semi truck that I've been using for months. I said, get that arm out of my face before I break it. That's not appreciated the same way in the private sector as it is the military. So I was also told at times to try to smile as I'm pushing a cart with equipment because I looked like I was going to kill somebody. And that's not a favorable trait in the public sector, or private sector either.
Yeah, they always, they tend to point out that we have a certain type of face. I won't say what kind of face, but yeah.
Yeah. So I struggled when I first got out. I was trying to take training after that. I'm trying to think of what the time frame was to become an Oracle database administrator. And so I'm in this program while they're trying to get my military benefits approved. Not GI Bill, but vocational rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of the hours. I know I had to be there at 8 a.m, and the class ran till 5. But this is LA, so I think I'd leave at 6 a.m. to get there by 8, and I wouldn't get home until 7. Pretty exhausted at that point. I believe I slept until 9 or 10, and then I would study until 4.
Wow.
And so I was trying my best to get through this program, and I thought I could actually become an Oracle database administrator. There are people into their second and third week of this program that don't understand how to turn the computer on yet. And at least they've shown up for class, because there's others that will show up after 2 and ask for their voucher to be signed to prove that they had been there. The reason I bring this up is my voc rehab was denied, and I got a denial on my disability at the time. And so I wasn't able to stay in the school. I got a job with Toyota's corporate headquarters as a tier 2 VPN consultant, which is like mapping IP addresses through routers and firewalls. Sounds fancy. We were asking for the numbers of the things that were moving through Toyota's network. But we were also telling them that they had to get these things installed, and they had to build up their infrastructure, and a lot of dealers didn't want to do that. So the program was delayed, and I lost my job. I think I was there for about 6 months. So the recruiter calls me up on a Friday. He goes, "Hey, I got great news for you." I'm like, "Yeah, what's that?" He goes, "You don't have to go to work on Monday." I'm like, "How is that great news?" So I go to Toyota's headquarters in Torrance, and they treat me like a criminal. I'm escorted up the elevator by a guard. I'm not allowed to stop and talk to people. I've just got to take the stuff out of my desk. I was like, I didn't steal anything. So I go on interviews. I think I went on about 16 or 17 interviews in the next 30 days. Nothing's clicking. So last day possible, I registered for college. And I started attending community college at Cerritos.
So 9/11 happens. Was there anything else that stood out during that time?
No, I just kept going to college at that time. I had joined a small business organization, LaTip International, and the Chamber of Commerce. And I was trying to build a tech repair business at that point. LaTip is a great organization. They allow one person from each profession to be a part of it. You get together and meet for breakfast. and share tips. It's like, hey, I know somebody needs their carpet done. I know somebody selling their house. I know somebody that wants their brakes, whatever it is, bank loans. The previous guy that had done IT really screwed them over. And so it took them a while to start trusting me. And I felt bad charging somebody $50 for changing out memory. And I wasn't getting much there, and I had nothing to offer. There was nobody in community college looking to buy a house. So I left that. I went to Pepperdine University at night as I was selling RVs during the day.
Around what time?
2002, 2003. Well, while I was at Cerritos College, I fell in love with forensics. And when I was first introduced to the term, I said, what is that, looking at dead bodies or something?
Yeah, that's the first thing that pops in my head.
Yeah, no, it's speech and debate. I'm like, wait a sec, you mean somebody wants to hear me argue? I was like, oh, it's on. So I made it to nationals, and they sent us to Florida for the week, the board of trustees. And so when we come back, we obviously are going to thank them for sending us on this trip. I said, thank you so much. My intention is business administration with an emphasis on marketing and a minor in speech communications at Cal State Fullerton. And one of the board of trustees members notices me on campus and says, hey, weren't you in that? Didn't you thank us? I said, yes, I did, ma'am. And she goes, I've got connections with Pepperdine. I can get you an interview. And I started laughing because when I was a kid, it turns out I was the dean of admissions of Pepperdine, came and preached at my small little church. We had less than 100 people in our church, probably closer to 50. And he had come and talked. And grad night in high school, we went down and played beach volleyball and everything, changed clothes at Pepperdine to go to Disneyland. And while I was getting my clothes changed, I mentioned something about baseball, which was pretty common back then. And the secretary said, the coach is in his office. Would you like me to go see if he's available? I'm like, no, I don't want to disturb him. And she said, when would you have another opportunity like this? I'm like, oh, you're right. So she goes and introduces me to the coach. We go into this conference room, and there's all these professional athletes that I never knew had gone to the school. I told him what my time was from home to first, and he offers me a walk-on the next day, but I got to go to Disneyland. I never got to follow up on that offer.
Oh,
so when this
no.
board of trustees member is talking about Pepperdine, I just start laughing. I said, I don't have the money for that. And she said, I can get you an interview. What's it going to hurt? I'm like, well, all right. I guess that's true. So I had been taking so many speech and debate credits and leveling up so many additional courses. I was one course shy of completing my associate's degree in a year.
Whoa.
Once I was accepted to Pepperdine, the Graziadillo Business College, I was the Senate Minority Leader for student government. I was the public relations consultant for forensics. And I was doing what I wanted and preparing to transfer to Fullerton. And so I'd mapped out my courses. And so if somebody it's kind of like Covey said, begin with the end in mind. You look at all the courses that you need to take, you identify what you're weak in, and you make sure that you do some of that each semester. Because a lot of people will wait until the end, and then they have this avalanche of fear of all these horrible courses they're going to suck at, and then they just drop out. So I had structured it more favorably, but then I dropped all of that and took this econ course to just transfer straight over to Pepperdine. And it was right after my first semester there, I had 2 A's and a B, that my voc rehab was approved. And they picked up the remainder of my bachelor's degree.
Wow.
They said they'd never undertaken such a high debt before, but since I'd already proven that I could do it, they went ahead and did it.
Wow. You obtained your bachelor's degree at Pepperdine.
Through Pepperdine. I was going to school at night at Irvine.
Is there anything else you want to touch base on during that time?
So while I'm selling RVs, horrible job. Bunch of racist jerks. I was blessed when I would come to work after church on Sunday. God brought me some of the most amazing sales that I'd ever had. Things that I don't know about. And I would tell people, I don't know about this. This is not something I'm strong on. And they'd have somebody else come over. It was the producer for TLC, Kevin Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
His parents are at this RV show, and they're trying to get into a Class A 40-foot motorhome. People are just walking by them. And so I go up to him. I'm like, hi, how are you guys doing? And let me get the keys for this. And so I get the keys and open it up, and we're talking. And then she starts showing me pictures of her son's hand-stitched emblem in his Lamborghini. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But my boss is a draconian racist, and they're literally making jokes about the banking executive that manages Kevin's money picking cotton in the cornfields, in the fields. And so I go to a kiosk in the mall selling cell phones to get away from them.
Right. You said that was it. That was your breaking point.
I talked to a friend, and she says, hey, over in Temecula, I've got this small low voltage company that's a subsidiary of Lennar that I'm working at. You can come over here. And so she gave me $12.50 an hour. And I redesigned the supply chain management system. I created a just-in-time inventory system. I broke up a national contract, reduced costs by 13%, preserving the profit for the vendors. And Lennar downsized low voltage across the country. So I was going to interview with Lennar for a purchasing agent position. Our first son is going to be born in a month. I've got no job, no opportunities at this point. And he throws my resume back at me after 5 minutes. Shortest interview I ever had. He said, you'll be bored stiff in this job in less than 30 days. I said, sir, I need this job. I got a son that's going to be born in 30 days. And he goes, no, let me talk to the vice president of operations. They have a position they've had trouble filling. Let me see if they'd be willing to give you a shot. I'm like, okay. So I'm interviewing for a project manager position with Lennar. And I'm with the controller and the CEO. And I don't remember what it was I said, but the CEO almost jumps across the desk to shake my hand and says, congratulations, son. I've been looking for somebody with a fire in their belly for a long time. And so that's how I started in project management. I was there until 2007 when construction completely crashed in California. This was in Corona. And businesses have been downsized, right-sized. So I got fired or laid off, whatever you want to call it, from Lennar. I worked with that same friend from the low voltage company, and I became a minority partner in starting a paint contracting corporation. I did everything except for paint and estimate, and they had to lay me off probably about 6 months after they started paying me. I worked in exchange for ownership for about 8 months, I think it was. And I transitioned them from a residential focus to a commercial focus. And I'm consoling them at their table, their dining room table, as they're crying, having to let me go. I was like, guys, you keep me around, you lose your house. What's that going to do? It's not going to do any of us any good. So I'm out of work for 12 months straight. Down in Temecula, it is so bad. Apple One temp agency goes out of business. There is nothing around. So then I go and I apply for a naval acquisition internship program at SPAWAR down in Point Loma, and for the VA hospital IT specialist position. And long story with the contracts job, I get the call for that. I start that job. There's a GS-11 at the hospital. I tell them I just started this job, and in 3 years it can be a 12, so I'm going to try to work out here, starting as a 7. The guy says, crap, well, I'm going to have to send out another announcement. So it was basically, come tour the place, this is your job. And I turned it down. I had a horrific time as a contract specialist in the government. I was told I was the only one that understood the contracts I was reading, was making people look bad. So they ended up kicking me out of that at 11 months.
Because your skill level.
Well, I kept my nickname, there's the dog. Hello, my name is No Bad Stop It. That's the middle name of the dog.
Yeah.
My middle name through the Marines was always Good Initiative, Bad Judgment. And so that carried on into this job. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. What am I supposed to be doing? And I kept asking for feedback, and I wasn't getting any. And I was told to reference the FAR. And I don't know if you've seen that animal. It's about that thick. I say it was written by lawyers to confuse lawyers. Federal Acquisition Regulations. It's a which way book. Do you remember those?
No, I don't. Oh, you're talking about like Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the FAR. If this happens, then go here. If that happened, then go there. I'm like, wait, what? And so I'm going back to where I was. I'm like, did I get to the right page?
Yeah.
Absolute confusion doing that job. So I'm told that I've made the government look bad because I held a contractor accountable and had a contracting officer file a show cause notice, meaning that the contractor needs to become proficient in their deficiency within the remaining time on their contract. So my supervisor was happy with the taxpayers receiving nothing on $700,000. My actions resulted in a fully functioning laser and a box of parts for the second. And I lost my job because of it. So I was chewing them out when I was being fired. I said, you don't understand. This is not your money. This is the taxpayers' money. I said, if you were kicking me out, you should not have sent me to the capstone course in New York, in Los Angeles for 2 weeks. I stayed at a Hyatt for 2 weeks while I went through the capstone course to become a contract specialist. And so they kicked me out. The next year, I ended up taking that same job at the VA hospital as an IT specialist as a GS-9. The 11 wasn't available.
Wow. You take a couple steps down.
Yeah.
What was your time like over there at the VA hospital?
Amazing. I worked with a supervisor who was so passionate about caring for the veterans. He would not let anyone fail. So I did the biomedical specialist job. I did the logistics job. I did the inventory and IT specialist. I loved my boss. He was great. The facility chief information officer calls me into the office and tells me that they're decentralizing or maybe centralizing, and that there's no position 11 or higher that's going to be local to the hospital. They're going up to the VISN. Veteran, I'm not sure what VISN stands for, but it's a collection of VA hospitals. And so they're not going to have anybody higher than a 9 working at the hospital. So there's no chance of promotion. So I talked to my wife about applying to Colorado, maybe DC. Forget I'd even applied. I mean, I applied to so many jobs, you kind of lose count. I would take my notes from the remedy queue, write everything down, and then at the end of the day, I go in and fill everything in. So I come back to put stuff in my computer, and I've got a voicemail telling me about this job that I've got in DC. I'm like, what the heck? So I tell my wife, I'm like, yeah, remember we called about that, and we said we'd be open to that. She goes, yeah. I said, well, I got somebody that's kind of confused. I didn't interview for something, but they say that I've been hired for a job, so I'll clear it up on Monday. So being a disabled veteran, I find that TSA is not able to skip over me, and they don't have enough time in the year to recompete the position. So they would lose it if they didn't give it to me. And so like, we just want you to know that this job is in Virginia, Crystal City, and we're not reimbursing you for travel. So it's $14,000, pretty much empty my bank account to move there. As a GS9 step 3, I've been there for 3 years now. And I struggle mightily in that position because they're expecting 6 to 8 years of experience in something I have 0.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I find out that they figured, hey, what the heck, might as well take a gamble. Well, thanks, buddy. You put me in this situation and I'm not able to meet your qualifications because I don't have 6 years of prior experience. That's not my fault. I would have told you the truth if you'd asked. So I fail a performance improvement plan. They're kicking me out. I go to a disabled veterans job fair in Fort Belvoir. And
around what time is this?
This is 2015. I have a 30-minute interview and a job offer. And he's like trying to, get me to accept, hey, this starts as an 11. I got to make sure people, prove themselves. And I'm like, that's great. The TSA at the time had their own SV pay scale, which nobody knew or understood. And so I was an H, which didn't mean jack to anybody. So I started over there as an IT project manager. So I kind of combined the residential project management with the IT specialist I got in the Marine Corps to become an IT project manager. And so I stay with the government. That was the National Program Protection Directorate. And I stay with them until it turns into there's a infrastructure side and a cyber side. And in 2018, President Trump made us an agency. And so we're CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, as the nation's risk advisor for critical infrastructure and cyber against man-made natural disasters. So I'm coming up in a couple of weeks on 20 years of service, having bought back my time from the military. The leadership that I've been able to demonstrate and the proficiency as a project manager, I qualified to attend the National Defense University, which is in DC. And it's part of the Joint Program Military Education that lieutenant colonels need to pass to become full birds.
This is what we're talking about, your level as a lieutenant colonel equivalent, right?
That's what I was referring to, yes.
Okay, all right.
You're like, how the heck does that come into play?
Yeah, I was like, interesting. Okay, well, I'm glad we got there.
Absolutely incredible opportunity. CISA paid for me to go through this school and paid for me to continue employment. So I'm getting my regular pay as a GS-14. So I've kind of come a long ways from a 7 back in 2009.
Yeah.
And it's an 11-month master's degree program at the College of Information and Cyberspace.
How's that going for you?
It was a phenomenal school. I was there with colonels from 17 different countries, and Denmark, Hungary, Japan, United Arab Emirates, Egypt. I mean, just all over the place. Phenomenal experience, amazing people. It was like, this is what leadership would have or should have been like. And I don't know how much that correlates to the enlisted side as it does on the officer side, but there were some great people that were obviously at this level, being 06s. There was quite a few of my peers that picked up 06 while they were in the school. So they're commanding brigades and all of this. I go back to doing my same job. And that's heartbreaking. That's been hard to process. We heard presidential lecture series from ambassadors, CEOs, authors, and people all the way up to the highest ranks of government. We were surprised around Christmas time. We were supposed to be working on our individual student research projects, a paper of 30 pages or longer. And we got called back into the office. And we're going through extra security. And we're like, what the heck is going on? President Zelensky came and thanked the military for fighting for freedom. And that was amazing. So I have pictures, not with, but taken in the same room as President Zelensky. And there's 1,000 senior government, senior military from other countries as well as the US comprise this group of people that are listening to him from 5 different colleges within the National Defense University campus. So just absolutely amazing. The biggest person that I saw in DHS was Secretary Mayorkas. And I got to ask him some questions, and then he wanted to take a picture with everybody afterwards. And so we go back, and he says, is it true that when you graduate from this college, you go back and do your same job? I said, yes, sir, that is correct. He says, excuse me? I said, yes, sir. He says, I'm going to fix that. He says, the military goes from here to commanding brigades. You should be moving up to a respectable leadership position as well. My degree is in strategic information and cyberspace studies. And you'd say the minor is in strategic leadership. And I go back to doing the same job, gathering requirements as an IT project manager.
That's a shame, man. When you went through all that, that's recent, right?
Yes, that was 23. Graduated June of 24.
Kevin Osborne's story concludes in the next episode of Chat 62. Thank you for tuning in. Stay the course and Semper Fi.
This is Eric from the Chat 62 podcast, Marine Corps veteran, and just another guy who's been through some dark nights of the soul. If you're struggling, I want you to know you're not weak. You're not alone. You're not broken. The truth is, a lot of us have been there. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, please just dial 988. It's free, it's confidential, and someone's there to listen 24/7. We need you here. The road's better with you in it. Stay the course.